Before we get into that, just want to remind you of all the great content over at bangthebook.com. Tons of stuff going on over there. Game previews all over the place for NBA, NHL, college basketball, college football. Just so much going on here at this time of the year. You want to try to stay on top of the latest, and we have a lot of that information over at bangthebook.com. We got Maction tonight. Ohio takes on Akron. Central Michigan takes on Kent State. Wrote up both of the previews for that game, and then also all the previews for the weeknight games. And we got some Saturday stuff rolling in now as well. So big week over at bangthebook.com. Just finished up golf this morning. Got NASCAR coming your way tomorrow, UFC either today or tomorrow. So again, we are your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. We've got our contest page over there, free contests. All you have to do is give us an email address. You'll win cash prizes with those. All we do with that email address is send you a daily newsletter of some of the new content that we have over there at the website. So please feel free to check those out. Also, our sportsbook reviews. If you're out there in the market for a new sportsbook, you're kind of wondering what's a good fit for you, where you think you want to sign up, check out those reviews. We talk about deposit methods. We talk about some of the other attributes that some of these sportsbooks have. Reduced juice, better parlay odds, better teaser odds, whatever the case may be. We've got some of those things listed over there at bangthebook.com, so you can check out those sportsbook reviews and see what works best for you. Finally, this and every edition of Bang the Book Radio is presented by DSI Sportsbook. If you sign up over at DSI using the promo code BTB and the number 25, you'll get a $25 free bet just for signing up, 100% deposit match bonus for the sportsbook, and 100% deposit match bonus for the live casino. DSI, it's only a game until you bet it. So we'll have Philip Rosenreich joining us here in a few minutes, but I guess we can take a look at the NHL market. We haven't done a whole lot of that here on the show of late. We have Parker Michaels' daily NHL picks over at bangthebook.com, so please feel free to check those out. I know he's got a few plays up for today and a really interesting money line parlay opportunity, so give a look to that piece that he writes up. Of course, you can follow him on Twitter at Creature, Kreatture, and chat some of those games with him as well. From my situational betting article, I've got that up over there at bangthebook.com every Sunday. Take a look at the schedule. Look for some good advantageous situational spots for us. I think there are a few out there in the marketplace tonight. One of them being the Vegas Golden Knights out on the road against the Edmonton Oilers. Oilers are minus 190, minus 195 favorite out there in the marketplace. But the reason I think it's worth taking a shot on Las Vegas tonight is that the Golden Knights had a really, really rough road trip. You know, they went out to the East Coast, played, I think, 6 games in 9 days, and that can be really, really challenging for a team, especially when you talk about a Vegas team where, you know, these players didn't play for this team last year. They went through the expansion draft process, so all of them trying to get accustomed, trying to get settled into a new environment with new teammates and all that type of thing. And so just 3-4-1 here on the road to start things off. They are 7-1 at home, and that's something that will merit watching throughout the season is how that home ice advantage works at T-Mobile Arena for the Golden Knights. But I feel like when you're a team that goes out and has some of the difficulties that they had with that road trip out on the East Coast, I feel like you try to establish a little bit more of a presence when you get back out on the road. That's the spot here for the Golden Knights. They got to come home, play a game, have a couple of days off. Now they go back on the NHL highway. Excuse me. And I think that this is a good spot to back Vegas catching a really big number because there are a lot of people that are looking at the start of the year for this team, and they're not really believing in it. 10-5-1 here. Not a whole lot was expected of them this season with that expansion roster, but they have played really well despite some goaltender injuries. I think this is a play-on spot tonight because you've got a couple of days off. You got time to travel up to Edmonton, get situated there. And like I said, you played so well at home, you want to try to establish and set that same standard on the road. So I think if you take a shot on Vegas here tonight, and also if you take a shot on these spots in general with some of these plus 165, plus 170 types of teams, I think you can find some good opportunities in the NHL to cash those big underdog tickets. So I think Vegas is in a good spot here for tonight's game out on the road in Edmonton. Columbus Blue Jackets. I actually reached out to the Blue Jackets beat writer. They played in Detroit on Saturday night. Had 2 days off before playing in Montreal, so I asked him, hey, you know, is Columbus going straight from Detroit to Montreal, or are they coming back home for a couple of days to take some time off? Well, they came back home. So now they go up to Montreal, and this game effectively becomes a standalone road game. And we've talked about these spots a lot in that situational betting article for both the NBA and the NHL, these standalone road games, very, very difficult for teams. You travel, then you come right back home. Sometimes it can kind of feel like it's a waste of time, especially if you're going and playing a non-conference or non-division opponent. Now, in this case, for the Blue Jackets, they are playing a conference opponent in Montreal, but not a divisional game here. Then they come right back home. And the biggest thing for Columbus in this spot is that they're taking on a Montreal team that has been playing better of late, has won 7 of its last 10, but a very, very flawed Canadiens team. So the line here doesn't really line up for us because Montreal minus 115 favorite in this one. I think that the situational spot priced accurately into the line here. I'd like to see Columbus at plus money. If you can get Columbus to plus money, but right now, no angle on this game. But I think it's a good learning tool for our listeners out there that check out that situational betting article, is that we circle these spots, we look ahead to these spots, we see if these spots do line up for us, but the price still has to be right as well. So with that situational betting article that I do, these aren't automatic plays. They're a guide. Everything is a guide. Power ratings are a guide. These situational plays are a guide. The game previews that we have at bangthebook.com are a guide. You still want to do your own handicapping. You still want to dig deeper into these situational spots. Still want to dig deeper into the games to find those edges, because you may find something that takes you off a game, or you may find something that strengthens your position. But you want to make sure that you're looking at the total package, the 360-degree view of a game. These situational articles give you the chance to circle games, give you the chance to look a little bit deeper at them, but sometimes the line just doesn't work out. So Columbus and Montreal, not a play here today for me based on the line that's out there, but situationally, again, you want to look for some of those same spots, the standalone road games and that type of thing. One other game that was in my situational betting article here for this week, Philadelphia taking on Minnesota. Rapid revenge theory in play here. These two teams just played on Saturday in Philadelphia. So, that's always an interesting angle for me. And it's one where, a lot of times you look at playoff revenge. I know that's something that people look at a lot in the NBA specifically. But you get some of these spots here where these teams play some of these home-and-home sets. Now Philadelphia goes on the road to Minnesota after losing 1-0 at home. It was a close game, a good game. Shots on goal very close. No face-off discrepancy in that one. So the two teams played a very equal game. Now Minnesota goes back home. They're a minus 145 favorite. Well, Philadelphia just played this team very close at home. And now, just because the venue is flipped, you've got Minnesota as a big road favorite in this spot. This game here the other day, Philadelphia was a minus 130 favorite. So I think there's a little bit of inflation here based on the fact that Philadelphia lost this most recent game at home. I think you can come back on the Flyers here tonight, getting a little bit of line value on them. And these home-and-home spots do allow you the chance to do that. So look for those situations as well. And again, I talk about all these things in that Sunday article over at bangthebook.com. But handicapping the schedule, very, very important to me in these daily winter sports, because I have a hard time keeping up with all these teams, keeping up with what all these teams are doing, because I'm so immersed in football until the season ends. We talk about football so much on this show week after week after week. That's what I need to focus the most of my attention on. But when it comes to these daily winter sports, you can use the schedule as a guide. You can use the schedule to your advantage. Maybe you're not an NHL guy. Maybe you don't know these NHL players. Maybe you don't know these NHL teams. You don't know the stats, all that type of stuff. But you can use the schedule to circle games and then dig a little bit deeper. For the NHL here tonight, we've got, 9 games on the board, 8 or 9 games on the board here tonight. But I've isolated 3 of them from a situational standpoint. So start with those. Look at those games. See if you find something that you can play. Of course, we've got college football here tonight with Maction. But usually on Tuesdays, you don't have college football. You got early season college basketball. Everyone's still trying to find their sea legs with that, still trying to figure out the right way to approach some of these teams. You've got a few NBA games tonight, only 3 of them. So you're looking for things to bet. You're looking for things to find value. Maybe the NHL is it. Even if you don't necessarily know a whole lot about these teams, you can use the schedule to your advantage and see what you can come up with. One other note I do want to make here today is that from a Major League Baseball standpoint, regular listeners of the show know that baseball, definitely my primary area of expertise when it comes to this industry, and it's my favorite sport, and I follow it very, very closely. But the GM meetings are going on here this week. And it's not the full-fledged winter meetings that we see coming up next month, But the GM meetings are very important. They talk about possible rule changes. Players get a chance to meet with front offices. Agents get a chance to meet with front offices. So this is a really important time for the hot stove season of Major League Baseball. We're going to talk about futures here later on in the show with Lockie Lockerson in terms of college football and college basketball, which are obviously going on. But you don't want to take away any possible investment opportunities because you're not paying attention to the other sports. With Major League Baseball and the GM meetings and the winter meetings, a lot of player movement, trades, a lot of free agent rumors, that type of stuff. Obviously, you have to sort through a lot of the BS that's out there, some of the clickbait and things of that sort. But you do get these opportunities with some of these off-season meeting periods to find some value out there in the futures market. And with the World Series being so far away, a lot of people probably aren't thinking about that yet. But there are some teams, there are some players that are going to be making noise here over the offseason. You got an interesting free agent group. You've got a very, very good free agent group coming up next year. So teams may be trading, shedding some payroll, trying to find some more cap space to get some of those players for next year. And by cap space, I mean the luxury tax, of course, because Major League Baseball doesn't have a salary cap. But these are all considerations here that Giancarlo Stanton could be on the move. Are the Marlins talking to teams here at the GM meetings? I guarantee you they are. So whoever signs or whoever trades for Giancarlo Stanton, you're going to see a big adjustment in their futures price. You're going to see a spot where value is taken away from you. So you want to try to find value wherever you can. And we talked about that later on in this segment here. And sometimes value can be found by paying attention to what's going on over the offseason and specifically with what's going on with the hot stove. Is a team that needs a first baseman going to sign Carlos Santana? Are the Royals able to retain any of their free agents? Well, if the answer is no to the Hosmer and Moustakas thing, do they go to a team that's a good fit for them? Do they go to a place where left-handed power can really flourish? Maybe that's a team that you want to look to buy in the futures market. Maybe the Mariners or the Red Sox or somebody pick up Carlos Santana. Gold Glove caliber defense this year, high walk rate, decent power. That's an instant upgrade to that offense. And that's something that's probably not going to be reflected in the futures market because he's not a Giancarlo Stanton. He's not a big-name free agent pitcher or something like that. So the Major League Baseball futures market is going to start to shift a little bit now with the GM meetings and then with the winter meetings next month as some of these players start to get signed. So, again, if you're not ready to dive in, if you don't have the capability to hold up your bankroll for 10 or 11 months while you wait on these futures to start to be decided, then still, it's worth your time, it's worth your interest to look at some of these things and see what the current landscape of that betting market is, and then be able to react accordingly as some more news starts to come out. Not sure what the holdup is with Philip here on today's show. Hopefully we can get him on the program very soon here. But one thing I do want to mention is we look at tonight's MACtion card. Ohio and Akron. Ohio a 13-point road favorite in this one. Central Michigan a 17.5-point road favorite against Kent State. Sometimes these MAC games, the best thing for you to do is to live bet. And maybe sometimes here in the last 3 weeks of the regular season, the best thing for you to do is live bet. Because we've talked about it throughout the last 2 weeks here. We talked about it on yesterday's show with Kyle Hunter, and I'm sure we'll discuss it as we go throughout the week here on Bang the Book Radio. But you have a different set of handicapping considerations when it comes to this time of year. Power ratings are still relevant, but they're not the be-all, end-all. They never have been the be-all, end-all. But for a lot of guys, they bet based solely on the numbers. They bet based on what their power ratings are telling them. Well, here at this stage of the game, you have different considerations, specifically when it comes to bowl eligibility. We talked about it on yesterday's show with Kyle Hunter that you can kind of see in the betting market already here, you're starting to pay that inflation. You're paying a point and a half, maybe even 2 points in these spots where teams are looking to secure that sixth win. Or if they have 4 wins and need to win out in order to get to a bowl game. You don't see that early on in the college football regular season. That's not incorporated into your raw power rating number. So that's why you have to take some different angles, different approaches to college football here at this time of the year. That's why I think live betting may not be a bad idea, because you've got a lot of teams that aren't going to bowl games. And if you're looking at it on the surface ahead of time, you're going to say, okay, this team that's 2-8, they're probably not going to show up for this game. They're probably not going to be invested. I'm going to bet the other side. Okay, not a bad thought process, not a bad way to go about it. But Wouldn't it be nicer if you could see the first couple series of the game and see, okay, this 2-8 team, they have quit. They're just not going to play. Because live betting is based on the mathematics. It's not really based on what you see. It's not based on any of the narratives. Maybe there are adjustments to the injuries, but it's based on the math. It's based on what the opening line was, what the exposure's like on both sides of the game. They're not going to look at intangible things like whether or not a team has quit. Before the game, yeah, maybe that's built into the line a little bit. During the game, it's not really going to be that big of a factor. So if you start watching some of these college football games, like this Central Michigan-Kent State game tonight, for example, you look at this one on the surface and you say, okay, Kent State's terrible. They have no quarterback play. Their best offensive player was hurt. They use their one running back a ton. Justin Rankin gets a lot of touches in the passing game and, of course, a lot of touches in the running game. Well, what if you start watching this thing and maybe Central Michigan's up 7-0 or 10-0, but they're moving the football with ease and Kent State's doing nothing? Maybe you can live bet. Maybe you're taking a worse number than the pregame, but if you watch Kent State and you see a couple of series and you can see that they're just not invested, that they just don't have a whole lot of interest in playing this game, then a live betting opportunity opens up to where you just go ahead and say, okay, Central Michigan can name the score here. As long as they want to keep going, they can name the score. I'm comfortable with playing this. But before the game, you're asking a Central Michigan team that is pretty mediocre. I mean, they've got a good defense, but offensively they've got some problems. You're asking them to cover 17.5 points. There's more risk involved in questioning Kent State's effort level before the game than there is during the game. To where maybe you can get Central Michigan -17, -21, something like that live. So that's something I want our listeners to focus on here over the last few weeks of the college football season, is that live betting is your friend. Live betting is your friend all the time, but especially now, because you can take some of these situations and say to yourself, okay, is this 1-10 team, 1-9 team going to come out and play? Is North Carolina going to give an effort again this week after they gave a really good effort last week? What kind of effort does Kansas show up with? What about Baylor? You've got a first-year head coach in Matt Rule. Jobs are on the line for next year. Playing time on the line for next year. Does Baylor show up? Do the Baylor Bears come to play here this week against Iowa State? Or does Iowa State get the chance to get back on track with an easy victory after a tough loss last week? Those are the considerations that you have to make here at this time of the year. And once you see the game start to play out, that's maybe when you want to attack. A situation like Baylor, I look at it and say, okay, look, it's been a rough year for the Baylor program. They've lost some guys from, instead of transferred. They've lost some scholarships. They've lost the entire coaching staff. Matt Rule is a high-intensity, high-energy type of guy, wants to bring a lot of positive energy to this program. That's great. So in terms of my pregame handicap, I think to myself, okay, this Baylor team's going to show up. This Baylor team's going to want to play for Matt Rule. They're going to want to play for their jobs. And I think when you look at the line that's out there in the marketplace right now with Baylor as a 9-point underdog against a much, much better Iowa State team, I think that's evident. I think the idea that Baylor wants to play, the idea that Baylor wants to give an effort, is built into the line. Now, let's say we see a series or two in this game. Iowa State's up a quick 14-0. Baylor just looks defeated. They look demoralized. Take the number out of the equation at that point, because at that point, you're betting a different game. You're betting live. Pre-game, it's 0-0. You're doing all your work. You're doing all your stats research and all that type of thing. The one thing that you have to guess on when it comes to these games is the effort level of both teams. Does Iowa State come in with a hangover off of some bigger games? Can they go to Waco, win by double digits, and cover the number? I don't know. But if I see them start fast, then it changes my opinion. Then I get a different mindset for this game. Also, is Baylor playing hard? I can adjust accordingly at that point. So I think live betting at this time of the year, and really at all times of the year, is just such a great asset for handicappers. I think it's such a great asset for gamblers because you don't have to gamble as much. You can see things. You can see how the game is going to play out. You can see how the game is taking shape and then react accordingly. So that's one of those spots where, like I said, you would think Baylor, from a pregame standpoint, is going to show up here because they have that first-year coach, because he's going to talk these kids up. They're winless at home. Maybe that's a factor for them as well. They're 0-5 in Waco this year. But again, this is all, you're speculating. You're trying to guess. You're trying to put yourself in the minds of 18 to 24-year-old college football players and try to figure out if they want to be there when they're going to win 2, maybe 3 games at most this season. That's something that maybe you need to see with your eyes. So then at that point, you can make that play at Iowa State. And again, there are a lot of situations like this out there. Illinois is another one here this week. Ohio State's supposed to beat Illinois by 40 to cover the number here. Now it's in Ohio State's best interest to blow out everybody they can the rest of the way to try and improve their college football playoff standing. Illinois is a 2-8 team. They're 0-7 in conference play. They don't even have 100 points in conference play yet. They've given up 209. Do they show up, or do they know going into this game that you're going to walk into a situation where you're going to get blown out, and there's really nothing you can do about it? Ohio State's just a better team. Can Lovie Smith talk this team up? Lovie Smith, a guy that's used to dealing with professional football players, second year here in the college ranks, is he able to get this team invested? Is he able to get this team to show up and give a big effort? I don't know. But you can find that out from a live betting standpoint. Does Ohio State meet any resistance on its first drive? Does Illinois try to do some creative things offensively to keep this game close? There are just a lot of factors here at this time of the year, and live betting takes away some of that risk, some of that exposure that you may have with a pregame position. So I got something that I want our listeners to focus on, not just at this time of the year, but as we go into future seasons, because honestly, live betting, in-game wagering is the future of this industry. Hopefully we do get legalization. Hopefully it is something that happens soon enough. But, when you look at how tight the markets have gotten from a pregame standpoint, it's hard. A lot of professional guys, and several of them that we have on the show here, have struggled this season. They have struggled with the full game handicap. But live betting is something that, can still work out for them. And then it helps their bottom line. It doesn't help what's happening for their clients. It doesn't help with what's tracked out there. And certainly in this industry, that's something that's really hard for them. But from a live betting standpoint, they can do some things that they weren't able to do previously. And that's the direction that this industry is going, because you have the ability to pick on variance, more so when it comes to live betting. Yeah, you can get some bad beats, and yeah, you can misread a game or something like that. But think about it. If you're betting a college basketball game pregame and the star player for a team gets 2 fouls, let's say Marvin Bagley gets a couple fouls early on tonight, has to sit on the bench for 13 or 14 minutes in the first half, isn't that something you would have liked to know before the game? Maybe you're holding a Duke ticket. That's frustrating for you. But then from a live standpoint, that's something you can look to take advantage of in the betting market, is at a TV timeout after that second foul, go ahead and hit Michigan State, or go ahead and hit the under, or something like that. That's the direction that this industry is going, is to take advantage of live betting and use that to its full capacity to build up your bankroll.